Today, we are going to study The Harp of India by Henry Derozio. Henry Louis Vian Derozio. He is regarded as the first Indian English poet. He was known during his lifetime as the first national poet of the modern India. He is ironically remembered as a forgotten Anglo Indian poet. His father was Indo Portuguese and mother was British. He led the Young Bengal movement. He was assistant editor of the Indian Gazette and the editor of the Calcutta Literary Gazette. He founded the East Indian, the first newspaper representing the Anglo Indian community. He died of cholera at the prime age of 22. Harp of India celebrates the glorious past of India and mourns over its loss because of British rule and ends with the hope that she will regain its glory. The poet uses harp as a symbol for the Indian poets who were earlier famous but under the British rule they are suffering. This work is in the form of sonnet. Usually, a sonnet is divided into octet and sestet. In the octet of the sonnet, the poet presents a problem and then tries to resolve the problem in the sestet. Derozio makes a slight deviation in the traditional structure of the sonnet that the harp of India is divided into two equal divisions of 7 lines each. However, he follows the thematic pattern of the octet and the sestet with the presentation of the problem. The decline of Indian poetic tradition and its resolution, its revival through his humble poetic efforts. Now you know the background of this work, so we can go through the lines. Why hangs thou lonely on you withered bow? Unstrung forever, must thou there remain? Thy music once was sweet, who hears it now? Why do the breeze sigh over thee in vain? Silence hath bound thee with her fatal chain. Neglected, mute, and desolate art thou, like ruined monument on desert plain. The poet refers to the rich art and tradition of Indian poetry as the harp of India. So, what do you mean by harp? It is a musical instrument consist of frame and parallel strings. The poem started with a rhetorical question. The question is that why the glorious tradition of Indian poetry lies neglected like a broken harp, hung on the leafless and withered branch of a tree. He questions whether the art of Indian poetry, which during the period of British domination of India was almost dead, must remain in this state of coma forever like an unstrung harp. So, thus, the very beginning of the poem is full of sadness. The poet imagines with a deep grief that it will remain there forever without its strings. So, like the dead branch, it is also dead. And then the poet recollects that the state of Indian poetry was once rich and glorious like the sweet melodies of a harp. Once rich in the sense, rich before the British rule. But now the condition of Indian poetry was pathetic. The present condition is British rule, the period of British domination in India. So now that the melody is heard no more as the present times, provide no inspiration to the creative minds and hearts to revive the tradition of soul. So previous time, the music of Indian poetry was sweet. Now the situation is worse due to the British rule or the British domination. Its strings have been removed and hence it cannot produce music. It has become too old to be played now. The breeze blows over the broken harp of poetry without drawing any melancholy from it. Any melody from it. The prevailing conditions of the times have compelled the poets and the poetic inspirations to remain mute as if bound by the fetters of silence. Here, even the breeze or air which passes by the harp cannot wake it up, or in other words, cannot play it. The silence, or being unmusical, it is dead now. It is now neglected. The art of poetry thus lies neglected, silent, and abandoned like a ruined monument in the vast wilderness of the deserts. At present, the situation or the condition of the Indian poetry is ruined due to the British domination in India. Oh, many a hand more worthy far than mine. Once thy harmonious chords to sweetness gave, and many a wreath for them did fame entwine, of flowers still blooming on the minstrel's grave. Those hands are cold, but if thy notes divine, maybe by mortal vacant once again, harp of my country, let me strike the strain. The poet then recollects that the art of poetry in the hands of poets of greater genius than his own had produced remarkable achievements. The way a deft musician, a gifted musician, produces enchanting music with his harp. So the second part begins with a mourn, and also we could see a shift from the musical instrument harp to those who sung melodies. That means the poets. The poet says that there were a number of poets before him whose melodies are more worthy far than his own. They produce excellent poetry that would make the listeners blissful. The remarkable works of poetry brought for their creators accolades, accolades in the sense honors and wreaths of appreciation. The poets belonging to the glorious period of Indian poetry continue to survive long after their demise, like flowers that continue to bloom on the graves of the poets long dead. The poet says that there were a number of poets before him whose melodies are more worthy far than his own. They produce an excellent poetry. The fame has always honored them due to their immortal artwork, immortal piece of work, which had kept them famous throughout the ages. Thus, they have lived after their death as the flowers still bloom on their graves. The end of this poem gives us a hope to the Indian literature. At the beginning, the poet laments that the poets of literary genius of the past now lie cold in their graves and the once famous poetic art lies abandoned. However, he expresses desire to revive the dying art of poetry of his country, India, with his humble poetic abilities and make the skies of Indian literature reverberate, reverberate meaning giving an effect or resounding or echoing it with melody of poetic art, just as a musician of a new generation revives a tradition of music with a musical instrument that had for a long period dwelt in oblivion and obscurity. So, in the end, the poet says, those hands are cold. Cold hands here refers to the poets who are dead now, but he desires to revive their works and hopes that the lost glory of Indian literature will be back again. Literary devices used in the Harp of India is given here. Personification is used in this work. Personification is when an object which is not alive is given human qualities. And another is simile is also used. Everyone know what is simile? It's a phrase which compares something to something else using the words like or as. Another technique used is synecdoche. Synecdoche is a statement in which only part of something is expressed to relate to the whole. Today we have studied a beautiful work written by Henry Derozio. Harp of India is a patriotic poem. This work celebrates the golden past of India and cries over the loss caused by the colonial rule. The ending lines of this work is optimistic that future of India is golden and one day it will attain its status of golden bird again. The word harp is symbolically used by Henry for the famous Indian poets who are facing oppression under the British rule. Thank you.